The great hall of the Jarun Empire was silent in a way that made even the ancient walls seem alert. Light flowed softly through tall crystal pillars, bending into slow-moving colors that reflected the mood of the one who ruled this place. Right now, the colors were dark and sharp. The alien queen stood at the center of the hall, her tall figure wrapped in layered ceremonial armor that marked her as both ruler and guardian. Her many eyes, glowing like embers behind a veil of energy, moved across the gathered nobles, priests, and guards. They avoided her gaze. They knew what had happened. The sacred blade was gone. For thousands of cycles, the blade had rested in a chamber sealed by tradition, belief, and fear. It was not just a symbol of power. It was said to be the heart of the empire itself. The blade had been present at the founding of their civilization, at every coronation, and at every great decision. Legends claimed it could judge the soul of anyone who touched it, and now it was missing. The queen's voice finally broke the silence. It was calm, but everyone could feel the rage held tightly beneath it. "Speak," she said. "Who entered the sanctum?" A high priest stepped forward, his body trembling despite years of training meant to erase fear. "Your Majesty, no alarms were broken. No seals were damaged." The sanctum opened on its own. A wave of quiet shock passed through the hall. The queen's claws tightened at her side. "That is impossible," she said. "The blade answers only to royal blood." Before the priest could respond, the main doors of the hall began to open. They did not explode inward. They did not crumble. They opened slowly, calmly, as if the palace itself allowed what came next. Every guard turned. Weapons were raised, but no one advanced. A single figure walked into the hall. He was human. Compared to the towering aliens around him, he looked fragile. He wore no armor, only a simple dark uniform worn by envoys of the Terran Union. His hands were visible. One was empty. The other held the sacred blade. A sound like a collective gasp echoed through the hall. Several nobles cried out. Some guards took a step forward before stopping, unsure if attacking was even allowed in this moment. The blade glowed softly, its light steady and warm, not wild or angry as it was said to become when touched by the unworthy. The queen stared. Her rage rose like a storm threatening to tear through her control, yet something held her still. Sensors built into the throne hall confirmed what her instincts already told her. The blade was active, not resisting, not rejecting, accepting. The human stopped a respectful distance away. He did not bow deeply, nor did he stand arrogantly. He simply stood, feet firm, posture calm, eyes focused on the queen without challenge. "My name is Elias Ward," he said in clear, steady tones. "I am a representative of humanity." The queen's voice shook the hall. "You hold what does not belong to you." "I know," Elias replied. "That is why I came here myself." The queen descended from her throne, each step slow and heavy. The lights of the hall flickered with her emotions. "Do you understand what you carry?" she asked. "Entire worlds have burned over the right to stand near that blade." "Yes," Elias said, "and that is why I never raised it." That answer confused many in the hall. A few exchanged uncertain glances. The queen stopped only a few steps from him. Towering over the human, she looked down, searching for fear, pride, or deception. She found none. "Guards," she said quietly. Energy weapons hummed to life, but she raised a claw before they could act. "No violence," she said. "Not yet," she looked back at Elias. "How did you enter the sanctum?" "I was invited," he said. "By whom?" Elias looked at the blade for a brief moment. "By the blade itself." Anger flared in the queen's eyes. "Lies." Elias did not argue. He slowly lowered himself to one knee, not in surrender but in respect. He placed the tip of the blade gently against the floor. The metal did not crack the surface. Instead, faint symbols glowed beneath it. A murmur spread through the hall. Those symbols were ancient. Older than the empire, older than recorded history. The queen's breath caught. She recognized them. They were part of the first oath. "Why are you here, human?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Because your people are afraid, Elias said. And because mine learned long ago that fear ignored becomes destruction. The queen laughed sharply. You dare speak of fear to me? I dare speak of responsibility, he replied. That word hung in the air. Elias slowly stood again. Your empire stands on the edge of something it no longer understands. The blade knows this. That is why it called to someone who would listen. And it chose you, the queen asked bitterly. No, Elias said. It chose what I represent. The queen circled him, her steps measured. Humans are young, weak, divided. Yes, Elias agreed. We are. That admission surprised many. But we learned something early, he continued. Power without restraint destroys everything it touches. We survived by learning when not to strike. The queen stopped in front of him again. And you think that lesson applies to us? I think, Elias said carefully, that the blade was never meant to reward rulers. It was meant to test them. Silence returned, heavier than before. The queen reached out slowly, stopping just short of touching the blade. Her hand trembled. For the first time since ascending the throne, she felt doubt. The blade's light did not reach for her. It stayed steady in the human's grasp. Her voice softened, though the danger remained. You stand in the most powerful hall of my empire, holding our holiest relic, surrounded by those who could erase you in a breath. Why are you not afraid? Elias met her gaze. Because I'm not here to take anything from you. Then why come at all? Because sometimes, he said, the bravest thing is to stand where you don't belong and refuse to run. The queen studied him for a long moment. She sensed no hidden weapons, no signals sent to an unseen fleet. This human was alone. And yet he carried the weight of something vast. Return the blade, she said at last. Elias did not move. I will, he said, when you understand why it came to me. A dangerous spark returned to the queen's eyes. You test my patience. Yes, Elias said softly. So does the blade. The hall trembled as the crystal pillars flared with light. The symbols beneath the blade spread outward, forming a wide circle that reached the queen's feet. The empire had not seen this sign in millennia. Whispers turned into fear. The queen straightened, lifting her head high. Whatever came next would change everything. She realized then that this was not a theft. It was a challenge, and the human before her was not her enemy. He was the question she had avoided for far too long. The hall waited. The circle of light beneath the blade slowly faded, but the tension in the great hall did not. No one spoke. Even the guards seemed unsure whether they were still guarding a throne room or standing inside a moment that history would never forget. The alien queen turned away first. She walked back toward her throne, each step heavy, as if the weight of centuries pressed down on her. When she reached it, she did not sit. Instead, she rested one claw against the armrest and looked back at the human. You will explain everything, she said, not as a guest, not as an envoy, but as someone who has touched what no outsider ever should. Elias nodded once. That's fair. A signal passed through the hall, silent but clear. The nobles withdrew to the edges. The priests lowered their crests. Only the queen, a small circle of elders, and the human remained near the center. You will speak truth, the queen said. The blade will know if you lie. I know, Elias replied. He loosened his grip slightly. The blade did not fall. It remained balanced in his hand as if aware of every movement. When I arrived on your world, Elias began, I came as a listener. Humanity sent me because we knew your empire was changing, expanding faster, growing more tense. The queen's eyes narrowed. We are strong. Yes, Elias said, but strength and balance are not the same. One of the elders hissed softly in disapproval, but the queen did not stop him. Elias continued. I was shown the sanctum as part of a cultural exchange. I was never meant to go inside. I didn't plan to. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But when I stood near the door, I felt something, not a voice, not a command, more like an invitation. The queen's gaze sharpened. You expect us to believe an object called to you. I don't expect belief, Elias said. Only honesty. He took a slow breath. I touched the door, it opened. A ripple moved through the elders, one stepped forward. The door opens only for royal blood. Or, Elias said gently, for those who meet the reason it was made. That elder recoiled as if struck by the idea. The queen raised a claw, silencing them. Go on. When I entered the sanctum, Elias said, the blade was not resting. It was waiting, not for me as a human, but for what I was willing to do. And what was that? The queen asked. Nothing, Elias said. The word echoed strangely in the hall. I didn't reach for it, he explained. I didn't think I was worthy. I thought it would reject me, but I stayed. I waited. I told it that if it truly belonged to your people, I would leave. The blade pulsed faintly, as if remembering. And it did not let you leave, the queen said. No, Elias said. It moved toward me. The queen's posture shifted. Not anger now, curiosity. You are saying the blade chose you because you refused it. Yes, silence followed. Then quiet laughter broke out from one of the nobles. This is foolishness, a story made to protect his life. Elias turned slightly, still calm. If that were true, the blade would be silent now. As if responding, the blade glowed brighter for a moment, then returned to its steady light. The noble said nothing more. The queen looked down at her own hands. She remembered her coronation, how the blade had felt heavy, resistant. How she had been told that resistance was a sign of strength. What do you believe the blade is? She asked Elias. A mirror, he said, not of power, of intent. One of the priests stiffened. That is not our teaching. I know, Elias replied. But your oldest records say otherwise. That caught the queen's attention. What records? Elias reached into his uniform slowly, making sure his movement was not mistaken for a threat. He removed a small data disk and placed it on the floor. Your own archives, he said. The ones sealed after the Third Expansion War. Humanity found fragments while mapping deep space. We returned them to your systems years ago. They were never shared publicly. The queen gestured, and a projection rose from the disk. Ancient symbols filled the air, forming texts long thought ceremonial. The elders leaned forward. These are the words of the first bearer, Elias said, the one who carried the blade before there was an empire. The queen's breath slowed as she read. The blade was never meant to crown kings. It was meant to stop them. The hall felt colder. These records were marked as symbolic, one elder said weakly. Because they were inconvenient, Elias replied. The queen closed her eyes. For the first time, doubt turned inward. She remembered decisions made in anger, worlds pressured into loyalty, traditions enforced without question. Why a human? She asked quietly. Elias answered honestly, because we failed. The queen opened her eyes. We nearly destroyed ourselves, he continued. Our history is full of ruins we built with our own hands. We learned restraint because we had no other choice. He looked around the hall. Your empire has never been forced to stop. The blade tried to remind you. You stopped listening. The queen stepped forward again. This time she did not loom. She stood beside him, looking at the blade from the same height. If what you say is true, she said, then my people have misunderstood our greatest symbol. Yes, Elias said, but misunderstanding is not the same as being beyond change. One of the elders spoke, voice shaking. If the blade no longer favors us, what becomes of our rule? Elias turned to him. The blade does not favor anyone, it warns. The queen reached out. This time she touched the flat of the blade. It did not glow brighter. It did not reject her. It remained calm. Tears welled in her many eyes, though she did not let them fall. I was taught that ruling meant never bending, she said. Elias shook his head. Sometimes ruling means knowing when to. She stepped back, drawing herself tall. The queen of the Jarun Empire looked out at her court. Leave us, she commanded. The elders hesitated, then obeyed. One by one they withdrew, until only the queen and the human remained in the vast hall. You have put my empire at a crossroads, she said. I know, Elias replied. That's why I stayed. The queen studied him. You are not afraid of what I might do. I am, Elias said, but fear doesn't decide my actions. A long silence followed. Finally, the queen spoke. Keep the blade for now. Elias looked surprised. You trust me? No, she said honestly, but I trust the blade to watch you. She turned toward the great windows overlooking her capital. Lights of countless lives flickered below. If my people learn the truth, she said, everything will change. Yes, Elias agreed. That's usually how truth works. The queen let out a slow breath. Then stay, speak, challenge us. Elias inclined his head. That's why humanity sent me. Far above them, unseen systems adjusted, old programs awakened. The Empire, for the first time in generations, began to listen. And the blade, resting quietly in human hands, waited for what would come next. The days that followed felt longer than any the Empire had known. News of the human and the sacred blade spread beyond the palace, not through loud announcements but through quiet whispers. Guards spoke to guards, priests spoke to acolytes, traders heard rumors and carried them to distant districts. No one knew the full truth, but everyone felt that something had shifted. Elias remained in the palace, not as a prisoner and not as a guest. He was given a simple chamber near the inner halls, close enough to be watched, far enough to show trust. The blade never left his side, yet he never wore it as a weapon. Most of the time it rested across his knees while he sat, reading or simply watching the light move across the walls. The alien queen watched him often. She did not summon him every day. Instead, she observed from a distance, through open halls and shared councils. She listened to how he spoke to servants with the same respect he showed her. She noticed how he never interrupted, never raised his voice, never tried to command attention. This made some of her people uneasy. Power to them had always been loud. The first true challenge came during the High Council gathering. Elders from across the empire stood in a wide circle, their forms tall and proud. The queen stood at the center. Elias stood beside her, silent, the blade held low and unthreatening. An elder stepped forward, his tone sharp. Our fleets wait for command, our borders strain, and yet we pause because of an outsider. Murmurs followed. The queen did not respond at once. She looked at Elias. Speak, she said, not for us, for them. Elias nodded. He stepped forward, careful, aware that every word carried weight. I am not here to weaken your empire, he said. I am here because strength without direction eventually turns inward. Another elder hissed. Easy words from a species protected by distance. Yes, Elias replied calmly. Distance saved us once. It won't save anyone forever. He lifted the blade slightly, not pointing it, just letting its presence be seen. This does not belong to me, he said. I never claimed it did, but while it remains with me, it asks one thing of all of us. And what is that? The elder demanded. Honesty, Elias said. The room quieted. The queen felt it then. Not fear, not anger, something heavier, responsibility. She stepped forward. For generations, she said, we believed the blade proved our right to rule. We never asked what it asked of us in return. An elder spoke, voice trembling. If we accept this, what becomes of tradition? The queen answered without hesitation. Tradition survives when it serves the living, not when it controls them. The council did not dissolve that day. It fractured, some left in anger, others in confusion, a few in quiet thought. That night the queen stood alone in the great hall. Elias approached slowly. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, she replied. I did. She looked at the blade. I ruled by certainty. Now I rule by questions. That's harder, Elias said. She gave a soft, tired sound that might have been laughter. Yes. The next challenge came not from words but from silence. One of the outer systems delayed its response to a recall order. No rebellion, no attack, just hesitation. The old response would have been swift and overwhelming. The queen did not give that order. Instead, she asked Elias, what would humans do? He thought for a moment. We would ask why. So they did. A message was sent not as a command but as a question. The response came hours later. Fear, confusion, decades of pressure of expectations they could never meet. The queen read the report slowly. "I never knew," she said. "You never asked," Elias replied gently. "Change did not happen all at once. Some systems resisted. Some leaders stepped down. Others clung to old ways until they were quietly replaced. No great battles marked the transition. No grand speeches echoed across the stars. It was slower than conquest, and far more difficult. One evening, as the artificial sky dimmed, the queen stood before Elias again. "It is time," she said. He understood. They returned to the sanctum together. The chamber opened without resistance. The pedestal stood empty, waiting. The queen did not reach for the blade. Instead, she knelt. Not to Elias, to the idea she had once ignored. Elias placed the blade back onto its resting place. The light shifted, warm and steady, filling the room without judgment. The queen rose slowly. "It will no longer be a symbol of rule," she said. "It will be a reminder." Elias stepped back. "Then my task here is done." She turned to him. "No. Your task was never to hold the blade." She extended a claw, placing a small insignia into his hand. "Stay, not as a bearer, as a voice." Elias looked at the symbol, a mark of counsel, not command. He smiled faintly. "Humanity will accept." Across the galaxy the story spread. Not of a human who stole a sacred weapon, but of a human who returned it. Not of an empire that fell, but of one that learned to pause. And wherever the tale was told, one truth remained clear. Humanity did not rise because it was stronger, faster, or more violent. It rose because, when faced with power, it chose restraint. And in a universe filled with empires shouting their strength into the dark, that quiet choice changed everything.